The Dorothy Szany Murder. On May 25th, 2006, 85-year-old Dorothy Szany was home making dinner for her and her 91-year-old husband Joseph. Sadly, Joseph's health was on the decline and he was wheelchair-bound. He also suffered from severe Alzheimer's disease. But Dorothy said that putting him in a nursing home was completely out of the question. Instead, she had chosen to take care of her husband in the comfort of their own home in Hammond, Indiana. According to authorities, Dorothy had just begun to cook something with boiling water on the stove when something drew her attention to the backyard. The couple's backyard was completely overgrown and littered with old cars from Joseph's collection. There was a tall wooden fence that lined the backyard and separated their house from a set of railroad tracks. A few hours had gone by, and police were informed that there was smoke coming from the window of a house in the neighborhood. They decided to investigate, and upon arrival, discovered smoke pouring from the windows of the Szany house. Joseph and his granddaughter were out on the front porch when police arrived. Only a few minutes before that, Dorothy's 34-year-old granddaughter Amy had just gotten home from work. Amy was living with her grandparents at the time and came home to see a frightening scene. The kitchen was completely engulfed in flames. She entered the home in a complete panic to find her grandfather on the living room couch, desperately trying to get to his wheelchair. Despite being in complete horror, she managed to get him safely to the front porch of the house. She then ran back inside to try and locate her grandmother, but was unable to find her. The smoke had begun to thicken, and Amy was forced to evacuate the house. Firefighters arrived at the scene not too long after and were able to put out the house fire. It was determined that the pot Dorothy had left on the stove had started the fire that charred the kitchen. The home was searched for Dorothy, but they couldn't find any sign of the 85-year-old woman. That was until they widened their search to the backyard. It was here that authorities found a truly gruesome scene. Dorothy's body was laid out in the yard, and it was apparent that she had been bludgeoned to death. Coroner reports were able to determine that she had been struck several times in the chest, head, and face. Tragically, it was the very first blow that had been the fatal one. Although her blood was found on many objects in the yard, the murder weapon that fractured her skull was never found. Unfortunately, neither was any DNA evidence that would point authorities to Dorothy's killer. While police were investigating the murder, it was noted that the Szany family home was very close to a street that was home to drug addicts and had a very large homeless population. Authorities had been contacted by Dorothy in the past because she had caught some of these people crawling in through a hole in her fence, trying to get into the backyard. They would sneak in hopes of trying to steal some of the scrap metal or pieces of Joseph's car collection. But on the day of her murder, authorities concluded that nothing had been stolen. Joseph was questioned by detectives in hopes that he might have seen or heard something that would help the case. But unfortunately, due to his Alzheimer's, he wasn't able to relay any helpful information to the police. But strangely, shortly after Dorothy's murder, her children would tell police that their father would ask to make sure that the windows were locked. He would go on to say that they said they would come back to get him too. Joseph passed away 3 years after his wife's murder, and his children said that they don't believe he was ever really able to fully understand what had happened. Dorothy was well loved in the community and was actually a very active member of the Catholic Church. She had even co-founded the community soup kitchen that would feed a lot of the homeless people that lived near her property. In fact, she was known to never miss an opportunity to serve in the kitchen, especially around the holidays. Dorothy was also an active bowler, and she even started a club to teach community children how to bowl. She was also a well-known member of the American Legion and its several other organizations around town. A reward was offered by the Catholic Church and the American Legion for information about Dorothy's death. Police questioned several persons of interest. However, they never made an arrest, and her case remains unsolved to this day.